Live with CDP, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast live on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and Anchor FM. Now here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Live with CDP podcast on this Monday, May 9th. Again, I forgot to do this on my last podcast show. Happy belated Mother's Day to all the moms out there, including my mom, Noreen. So I just wanted to mention that because I was in a hurry to get off my show the other day, not because of the guests, it's because of time constraints. So anyways, I hope all the mothers out there had a great Mother's Day. So welcome to season 3, episode 36 of Live with CDP podcast. This is my 146th episode of my podcast show. So I'm getting close to that 150 episode mark in just over 2 years. So I'm looking forward to my guest today. Her name is Barbara Mantini. She's a professional vocalist, jazz singer, actor, and a vocal coach as well. She's from the Niagara Falls, Welland area, and I'm looking forward to speaking to her about her career. So if you guys can just bear with me for a minute, and I will bring on Barbara, and we'll talk a little bit about her career as a musician and as a vocal coach, and about her career as an actress as well. Just 1 second. Good afternoon, Barbara. How you doing?
I'm good, Chris. Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I was looking forward to speaking to you about your career and stuff like that, and music and a little bit of everything you do.
Yeah, I do a bit of everything. That seems to be the way when you are an artist in the arts. You do a little bit of everything just to to continue to work.
So how was your weekend? How was your Mother's Day? And what's the latest project you're working on?
Well, I had a really great weekend. I celebrated Mother's Day by performing. Actually, I was performing for some seniors. It's in some seniors retirement centers. One in Erin Mills and one in Oakville, and I did a little program for them there. And
Wow,
so that's how I celebrated my Mother's Day, and it was lovely. It was very nice, and so I got to do my thing and do a show for them.
And how did it go overall? Really well?
I think so. I think they liked my program. I kind of went with the stuff that I thought they would like from their eras and from the 50s and the 60s, the 40s, 50s, 60s. I did a little bit of the 70s, not too much, but they all seemed to have appreciated the program I chose.
I was going to say, how did you get into the industry, and who in the jazz industry kind of inspired you?
Well, jazz, it's kind of a broad spectrum, right? So jazz covers a lot of ground. I think big band jazz is what initially got me into the jazz. I started singing. Well, I've been singing for a very long time. I started singing when I was like 13. Well, forever. As a child, I was one of those kids that would sing. If you would say, Barbara, sing the song, I would do it. I had no fear until I became a teenager. Then I developed my insecurities. But I started singing in a band with my older sister, Sandra, when I was about 13, 14, and did that for a few years. And then we started doing some community theater and got into musical theater. And I did musical theater for quite a few years. And the amateur theater led me into professional theater. And I worked together with as a soloist or as a solo artist, but also as with my sisters, Sandra and Anne. A director put us together as a trio, and we used to get hired to do shows that needed a trio, and then we developed our own shows and produced those for like 20 years. We traveled and toured, and we still perform together, but not as much as we used to. So we would create these shows and produce them and sell them to concert series in the States and in Canada. And then then we would also do our own stuff like theater. We would get hired to do theater shows, musicals, and then I started doing more band work with my husband. Once I got married, he had a band, and then I started singing with his band, and then I started doing some jazz work, and one thing led to another. You just keep adding, and I also sing a little bit of classical as well, and I have the regular church gig as well. So a little bit of everything and teaching on top of it.
I was gonna
Did
say,
I answer your question, or did I just go off on a tangent?
no, that's okay. That's okay. Like I said, that's great. Was besides your sisters, was there anybody else in your family that had musical talent?
Well, it just seemed the three of us. We were 7 kids. We all loved music, and my parents loved music, but they didn't play an instrument. But we always had records back in the day when there was a record player.
I remember those days. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember our dad bought us this record player, and it had, removable speakers, but it was stereo, and, when he bought it, it came with, like 100 free albums, and, like, it was crazy, and it had every genre of music. I think that's where our training came from, listening to these albums that ranged from classical to jazz to musical theater, pop, it's just everything of that time. So we learned a lot of repertoire just from our records, and then we started doing harmonizing, singing along, and I think that's what helped us become a trio, was singing along to in harmony.
I was gonna say, how many songs have you recorded so far by yourself and with your sisters, and how many CDs have you made so far?
So for me, myself as a soloist, I have 1 CD, which I released in 2020, and then we had COVID hit, and then I couldn't do my release until I just did it last week, my release show. The CD was released digitally, but not publicly in like live. So that was finally done. So on that album is about uh 11, 12 songs, and there's 5 originals, and yeah, so it must be 10 songs, 5 originals, 5 covers. And with the sisters, we have 3 CDs that we produced, 3 different types. We have a Christmas CD that kind of goes with our Christmas show, because we had a Christmas show that we tour with. We have another one called A Pretty World, which is music of the 60s and 70s, but different arrangements that feature our harmonies. And Moments to Remember, which is music from our very first show that we did as a sister act that we toured with. And that was a really, really successful show for us, because it featured female pop singers from the 50s, the 50s, the 40s, 50s, and 50s, 60s, and 70s. So that show did really well for us. We did a lot of that, took us many years with that show, and then we just kept adding other shows. So our newest show is kind of a culmination of all of our experience, and we've added a horn band, and it's a little more concert like rather than show like.
Okay, one thing I wanted to ask you, how long did it take for you to do your CD by yourself? Like, what's the time process for creating a CD with all your songs?
Okay, so I was working with a gentleman. We were doing gigs, and so some of the songs kind of developed as we were doing our gigs, and then some. I would say it took me a year from like, okay, I'm doing it, and then a year to decide what songs I wanted to do, and then yeah, a year, maybe 2 years actually, maybe 2 years from the thought to actually picking all the songs and deciding what songs and going into studio and then having it all mixed and ready and pressed.
I was gonna say, and how many songs are on a CD? About 8 or 9?
I think it's 10.
10.
Isn't that funny? I can't remember. I thought it was 12, but maybe it is 12, and I don't have it in front of me right now. There's about at least 10. It's terrible. I can't remember.
Now, when you were selecting your songs, did you have input from anyone, or did you just choose the songs that you felt would be the best?
Well, 5 of the songs are original tunes that I wrote lyrics to. So the Randy Sturzinger is the musician that I collaborated with. He wrote most of the originals, like he had melodies, and I wrote lyrics to them. So we collaborated on, he gave me a bunch of songs to listen to, and then I picked the ones that I liked that I felt I could put lyrics to. And there's another original song from John Sherwood, who actually he plays piano on my CD, and he had a recording, his own live recording, and he had a song on there. And I was listening to his stuff, and I heard that one's original song that he wrote didn't have any lyrics, and I could hear lyrics in my head as I was listening to it. And I asked him, do you mind if I put some lyrics to it? And so he said that was cool. So I did that, and I got their approval first on my lyrics, and then I approached another friend of mine, Jimmy DeMartle. He writes a bunch of stuff, and I asked him if I could listen to a few of his original tunes. He already had lyrics to the songs, and I picked one of them. And then the other ones were just like standards that I would do in performance.
Okay. I was gonna say, have you written any of your own songs, or most of it is you've done the lyrics?
Mostly lyrics.
Lyrics.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it might be something new. Might be something I'll tackle later on in life.
Because that's something I'm curious about, how long it comes, what the process is for a songwriter, and how long it takes to go through all that stages and stuff.
Yeah. Well, even the lyrics, takes time sometimes. Sometimes they come easy and sometimes they don't. And deciding, what's your story going to be, and just making it work with the music and rhymes and all that.
Okay. Before I get to some other questions, is it okay if I show a little video clip of your work from
Sure.
your YouTube channel? I've been checking it out and listening to some of your music, and I find it so relaxing and so calming and just
Oh,
peaceful.
nice. Thank you.
And you have a beautiful voice. So I usually do this with my guests anyways. I just like to show a little bit of their work on here. So the one thing I got to ask you, I do have permission to use your music on here?
You do.
Okay, because I know how crazy Facebook and Twitter and YouTube are with music copyright rules and stuff.
No problem.
Okay, 1 second. It's your jazz page, and it's about a 3-minute clip.
Now, heaven, I'm in heaven, and my heart beats so that I can hardly speak, and I seem to find the happiness I seek when we're out together, dancing cheek to cheek. So dance to samba, so dance to samba, bye 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 bye. So dance to samba, so dance to samba, bye. Down with love, the flowers, the rice, the shoes. Down with love, the root of all midnight blue. Down with love that gives you that well-known pain. Take that love and wrap it in cellophane. Don't you worry about a thing. Don't you worry about a thing, sugar. 'Cause I'll be standing on the side when you check it. I don't want French fried potatoes, red ripe tomatoes. I'm never satisfied. I want the frim sauce with the awesome face and shofar on the side. It's not the clothes he wears, but in the love we share. One full of hopes and dreams, the plans and schemes that take a hold of me. Quiero que vivas solo para mí y que tú vayas por donde yo voy, para que mi alma sea lo más de ti. Bésame con frenesí. They call her hard-hearted Hannah, the fan of Savannah, the meanest Allentown. Leather is tough, but Hannah's hard as stubborn. She's a gal who loves to see men suffer. Georgia, Georgia, the whole night through. Just an old sweet song that leaves Georgia on my mind. On my mind. Oh, blues are going back home. No more blues. I do my laundry now. I'm settled down, never wrong. Far back, make the whole settle down. There'll be no more blues. Nothing but happiness, but we settle down. There'll be no more blues. Nothing but happiness, but we settle down. There'll be no more blues. Woo! Love it.
Anyways, that clip was courtesy of your YouTube channel, so please check out your Barbara Mantini YouTube channel. I've already hit the subscribe button. I really like that little clip of your work. It gives you the audience a little bit of a taste of some of your songs and stuff.
Yeah, that's some of my jazz stuff.
Yes, jazz. Yes. Which club was that at?
That was an outdoor festival in Jordan, I believe. Jordan, they call it Summerfest. I think they call
Okay.
it Summerfest Festival.
I was gonna say, and people also don't realize this too. I do camera work with Rogers TV, but people don't realize when you do a live broadcast or even what you're doing performing live, how much work there is in a setup and then a teardown afterwards.
Yeah. So it depends. I just have to bring my microphone and my little iPad and my music stand. If I'm doing a jazz gig in a club, I have to bring my own PA. And the musicians have to bring their instruments. So there's that, and then sound check. But at a festival, usually the PA is provided for you. And so that's a nice treat when all you have to do is bring your instrument, plug in, and then someone else takes care of the sound. That's always a treat.
What's the normal, like when you're performing live? What's the like a daily day like, and when do you have to get to that club where you're performing before you go live? Like a couple hours or 1 hour?
It depends on what kind of a performance it is and where it is. If it's me doing my jazz, I show up about 45 minutes early, half an hour to set up, plug in, and go. No more than an hour. But if I'm doing a theater show, like with my sisters, if we're doing a concert in a theater, then our sound check will be quite early in the day. So let's say you have a 7 o'clock show or an 8 o'clock show. You might have a sound check at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
And then, then depending on how big the band is, like with the sisters, if we have a big band, we might just rehearse a couple of things and get used to the stage, because the stage might be big, and then we just have to kind of, when you're working as a trio, there's more to think about, like stage wise. You have to kind of work together. When you're solo, it's all up to you, so it doesn't matter, right? You can just improvise at the moment what you're going to do.
Okay. I'm going to ask you another question. Where did you attend school, and did you have any mentor or mentors when you were starting up in the industries?
I did not go to a post-secondary school. I graduated high school, and then I went right to work, like in an office, doing office work and secretarial work. But I always knew I was going to go into singing. So I studied music privately from the time I was 16, and voice work, and predominantly, and did my exams and stuff for the Royal Conservatory. And then by the time I was 21, I was getting paid to do theater shows and theater gigs. So that took me away So that was my schooling, was actually doing it, being thrown into it, and taking dance lessons as well on the side, because I had to learn to dance. I had to, take some acting classes, take singing classes, and that was all done like on my own time. And yeah, mentor wise, I had a lot of mentors, people that believed in you and encouraged you. My very first mentor would have been Peter Hamilton. He was a director from New York that would come in and direct the community shows with Garden City Productions, and he always was very encouraging and encouraged me to pursue music theater. And then we another director, Alan Lund, took the sisters and I took my three sisters, took my two sisters and me, um, to Charlottetown Festival where they do Anne of Green Gables, and he put us in a big band show, and he had a lot of faith in us, and he really loved us, and he put us in individually in shows, and then he put us together in shows. So he was a mentor as well, and as well as Howard Cable. Howard Cable was a conductor and arranger. He was quite big at the time with CBC in the 50s and 60s. They used to have like variety shows, and at the CNE they used to do these big huge spectacle shows, and he was always a musical director. But when I met him in with the Charlottetown Festival, he was our music director, and he would do pops concerts across Canada. He would do pops programs, and he was always looking for new artists to add to his program, and then he took the three of us to be part of his concert series. So we performed with orchestras across Canada, doing his pops shows. So Howard Cable was a great big mentor, and a dear, dear, dear friend up until he passed a few years ago.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. Like I said, life is too short nowadays.
It is, and that's why you have to enjoy life, and you have to be brave and do the things that you love and that you wanna do. You can't put things off, because you don't know what you have to let go of the resistance, and the things that hold you back, and just do what it is you love, and be open to it and brave, and because life is short. We don't
Well,
know our
that's
expiry date.
That's true, and it took me almost. I'll be 50 in June, but it only took me 48 years to figure out what I want to do, and that's to get into radio. And I've been doing this podcast show for over 2 years now, and I've been doing volunteer work with Rogers TV as a camera operator, and then I'm with the National Basketball League of Canada as a media representative, and I'm just hoping I get an opportunity one day from my work on my podcast shows.
That's awesome, and, you will. You keep striving for that, and you will. You will. I was 60 when I made my jazz CD. It was
Wow,
my bucket list thing.
wow.
So, it took me a long time to get there, and I didn't know. I always wanted to do a CD, but I didn't know what I was gonna put on my CD until I started to sing jazz, because I didn't always do jazz gigs, and then once I started doing these jazz gigs, uh, that's when the idea came. And so, I don't know what the future has for me, but I've learned, if I wanna do something, I do it. I write it down, and next thing you know, I'm making plans. You're right? It takes one step at a time. You just have to put it out there. And I find writing it on paper is much is there's something about writing down your
Mhm.
desire, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're doing steps towards your desire.
Absolutely, and that's what I do with my podcast shows too. But I've also learned too from Eric Smith from the Toronto Raptors too. It's good to write stuff down that you want to ask your guests, but you try to make the conversation as natural as possible. Like we're talking at a club or we're talking outside. It just makes for better conversation instead of doing everything all completely scripted on live.
Yes, and that takes practice, right?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
one thing too I'm learning too is any career you go into, you're going to have setbacks, you're going to have rejections. I did get one today from a podcaster producer job in Toronto, but they at least were nice enough to let me know. But you know what? I'm not going to let I wouldn't say the word rejection. It's just right now I'll just have to I guess it's just got to keep working hard on what I'm doing and
Yeah,
and
it's
and,
just
and
not the time, and there
yeah.
will be a time, right?
Absolutely. So, because that's sometimes people they try to go into a career and then they have a setback and then they just kind of give up and I'm very motivated with this podcast and what I'm doing.
That's great. That's awesome. Good for you. And it's like with my CD. I finished recording it and released it digitally, and then COVID hit like the next day. I had to cancel my shows, and then those 2 years of COVID was really discouraging because then I started losing the impetus to do my show, and I wasn't sure if I was going to do my show. And then someone said, then I went to the venue that was actually going to host my show, and I just went there to watch someone else, and they said, "Hey, we got to get you back in here." And I went, "Yeah, okay." And then the next thing you know, I'm booking a date, and I booked a date and did it. So you do have days of discouragement, right?
Yes, and that I try to ask that with all my guests too, because I love hearing my guests' stories as well. Because not everything in life goes smoothly or according to plan. There's
No,
sometimes there's what's the word I'm looking for? Detours.
that's right. And maybe those detours are important.
Definitely. And what I was going to say, that's what got me, that's what helped me get through this pandemic is I ironically started my podcast show just before the pandemic struck. And it really helped me get through those 2 years.
That's great. Yeah, that is
Okay.
awesome.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to ask you, I think I already asked you this, but I can't remember. My memory is a little fuzzy here. Do you remember the first song that you ever performed? And just did you have some favorite jazz singers when you were growing up specifically?
The first song I ever performed in public?
Yes.
Yes, I was in kindergarten, and I was as a child, I was not shy about singing. The shyness didn't come till later, when you're like 13. So anyway, I was singing at school. I told the teacher I was going to be a singer, and I think it must have been a show and tell. I sang Rudolph the Red Gun Cowboy. My neighbor had just taught me that song, and I sang it. And there was a school. Uh, uh, what do you call that when you're in the gym? Uh, Everybody is in the gym, the school assembly,
Yes.
and the vice principal uh, calls me up and asks me to sing a song. And I remember I could hardly wait to sing, so I sang Rudolph the Red Gun Cowboy. So that would be my first public appearance. It's not a very nice song. So that was my first appearance. And then my favorite jazz singer, I think, has to be Ella, of course, Ella Fitzgerald. She's she is the epitome of jazz singing, and with her scatting and her mellow tone and just everything that she did. And of course, there's Sarah Vaughan, and there's a ton of jazz singers, but I really like Ella.
Okay. I was going to say, and what's your favorite city so far that you've performed in so far?
That I've performed in. My favorite city. Hmm. Gee, they're all beautiful. Uh, I don't know. That's a good question. That's a hard question. Um, the Ruth Eckert Hall in Florida with my sisters. That was a beautiful hall. Huge. It was huge. That was a beautiful hall. So maybe that's one of my favorites.
I was going to say, have you been to New Orleans yet? Because I know they're known for their jazz.
I was only there as a tourist, but I did go
Okay.
to New Orleans. Yeah.
Because that's one of my cities on my bucket list is
Yeah.
to
It's
check out New
fun.
Orleans.
It's very nice,
Definitely.
and lots of jazz and lots of history as well in that town.
Definitely. Okay. Are you still good for time for a few more minutes?
I am.
Okay. I just wanted to double check because I like to talk and ask a lot of questions too. So, my next one I wanted to ask you was, can you tell my audience about your role as a vocal coach?
Yeah. So I started doing some vocal coaching or vocal teaching. I would get some people who wanted to, like adults and young adults that wanted to improve their singing, and so they would come to me for lessons or just to get ready for an audition and tweaking. And that doing that actually led me to teach at Niagara College in the acting program. I teach there part-time as well in the acting for film and digital media. And so I teach vocal production, how the voice works, and we do voiceover stuff as well. I will direct them in there when we create demos, commercial voice demos for the students, and I would direct them. And so my private teaching has led me to teaching at the college. Um, and I continue. I have a few students. I don't take a lot of private students anymore, but I just take the ones that are really serious and enjoy working on their voice. And especially if they have like a goal they want to achieve. I love that.
And I was going to say, I've had some guests on, including Jerry Howarth, who used to be with the Blue Jays. And he was telling me before he was with the Blue Jays, he actually took vocal lessons just to work on his voice for doing radio as well.
Yeah, yeah, because it's a whole science behind having a good projected voice, very and supported breath and a nice clear voice. Um, um, and also my coaching and teaching at the college also led me to another thing that I do is I direct audiobooks. Or a voice, I direct the voice director for audiobooks. So that it all kind of led me to that.
Definitely. And leads me to my next question is, what is it like to be a professor at Niagara College and teaching students, and how satisfying is that when you see your students succeed?
Oh, it's so satisfying. I love to see my students, you know, pursue what they want and are successful at it. It's a tough industry, right? The film industry, the acting industry, but uh, it's so satisfying. I remember I had one student, his name was Scott, and Scott wanted to do voice work. And I also teach like a marketing class for the actors on how to market themselves and creating their portfolios and doing income tax and all that. And I remember he just wanted to be a voice artist. He wanted to do voiceover, and he was actually very good at it too. I remember working on his demo, and it was like, wow, he was already quite ahead in his craft. And once he graduated, he like within a year, he landed an agent. He started doing voiceover work. He was doing like all of the lottery, the lottery. Lotto Max. He was doing Lotto Max for a while. He was the voice of Lotto Max and car. Um, um, I forget what car, if it was Toyota. Anyway, he was doing a bunch of voiceover work, and he still does. And so that was, it's a coup for teachers when their students are successful. And we've had other students that one girl, she wrote a script. She submitted it to CBC, and they piloted it, and she ended up with a series on CBC Gem. So that's exciting. Is wow to see them doing stuff.
How many years is the program that you're teaching? 2-year program, 3-year program?
It's a 2-year program. It's very, very, very comprehensive 2-year.
Wow.
They
I
get
was
a
gonna
lot of experience, a lot of training, a lot of stuff.
And I was gonna say, and people identify like certain voices. Like I've had public address announcers on too, and as soon as you hear the voice, you identify them with that team as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, you
So
do.
definitely. This leads to my next question I want to ask. What is the hardest aspect of the acting, vocal, music industry, and what do you enjoy about it the most? Obviously, you mentioned it, the satisfaction doing it for your love because you have a passion for it and for your students. But what are some of the hardest aspects of it?
The hardest aspects is getting a gig all the time, like always having to hustle, hustle, hustle. And now we have social media. You got to keep posting. That to me, that's the hardest. Trying to sell yourself is the hardest. Because it's not what it is. It's not what you want to do. You just want to go out there and do your thing. But selling yourself is hard. That's hard work.
Abs-
Um,
uh, I can kind of relate to that with the podcast because there's so many podcasts out there, and just promoting myself on social media is a full-time job itself.
Yes, absolutely, it is. It is. And, what I enjoy the most is the actual doing of my craft, of my art, and reaching people and knowing that you touch people with your work, and, that's the most satisfying, is actually doing it.
Doing it and enjoying it. So in a way, I'm not a musician because I don't have the voice or the talent for it, but I like to tell stories. That's something I have a passion for, being a storyteller and
Yes.
being able to talk to different people from my guests. 80% of my podcasts are sports, but now I'm branching out and trying to talk to people from other industries, such as yourself, and just to branch out a little more too as well.
That's great. Yeah. You need the diversity, right?
Absolutely. So, and I've taken up blogging too. So I find the more things I can do, the more of an asset, hopefully, it'll be for a company one day.
That's great, Chris. That's awesome.
Okay. Next question I wanted to ask you: who are some of your other favorite musicians and actors? And tell us about some of your voiceover work and which ones you've done. I think Rupert was one of them. I have it down on my little ticker here as well.
Yeah, some of my favorite musicians? Anyone who's talented is my favorite musician. Um, I love classical music, and I love jazz, and I just appreciate good musicianship. Even in the Niagara region here where I'm from, we have some really talented, I mean, really talented musicians, and nobody knows who they are. Um, and whenever I book musicians for my gigs, I'm in awe of their talent. So they're all my favorite. They're all my
Okay.
favorite musicians.
Okay.
And actors, I don't know if I have a favorite, but I love a lot of British television, unfortunately. I love to watch British series. Um, the acting is so superb. Um, but of course, we have and now I can't even think of names. Um, the names will escape me. Um, but I do have a lot of favorite actors. There's not just one.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one I had to ask you. I didn't want to forget this question. I was going to say, do you have any rituals before you perform live to help you relax and focus more?
Yeah. I'll warm up. I always warm up vocally. I find that centers me and grounds me and gets the voice ready, but I also need to ground myself in the breath. Um, because you can get really nervous and anxious about your performance, but if you're grounded, it helps, and it helps you to focus, and then you don't have to worry about your nerves so much. Some days are better than others, so I guess, and then usually for the whole day, I don't like to do a lot of stuff. Like I'll putter, but I don't like it when I have to do a million things and then I have to warm up and then go perform. That kind of, it doesn't get me in the zone. So I like to have a nice comfortable day. I had just a bug across across my desk. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so I like to take it easy in the morning. I like to write my notes. I like to do maybe a little puttering around the house, or put things away, just things that aren't too hectic, and then do my warm up, get myself in the zone. I like to get to the venue a little bit early so I can get into the space. That's my ritual.
I was going to say, on an average performance, what's the time like? Is it usually about an hour, hour and a half, 45 minutes, or it just depends on how
To
many songs you're doing?
to get in the zone, you mean, or to warm up?
To warm up, like
To
for a
warm
performance.
Yeah, to warm up, I don't need a lot of time because then I'll get tired, right? So I just want to get the breath going, get the range going. So 10-15 minutes is plenty. It's plenty. 10-15, that's all
Yeah.
I need.
Okay.
Just to kind of get everything moving and focused, and even just focusing my thoughts. That too, that takes about 5 minutes, I guess. That's very helpful.
Oh,
And then
that's good.
I see that I
Yeah.
didn't answer about the voiceover work.
Yes.
So I always wanted to do voiceover work ever since I was a kid, right? I liked cartoons. And how I got into voice work was when I was living in Toronto, pursuing the acting a little more aggressively. I saw I belong to a couple of actors unions. I belong to the Canadian Actors Equity and ACTRA. And I noticed a posting of someone doing a workshop on cartoon voice work, and she was the director, and she worked for Nelvana at the time, which is part of Chorus now, and she directed things like Magic School Bus and Arthur and Rupert and all that. So she was doing a workshop. I took her workshop, and in those days there weren't a lot of workshops. Now there's a lot of workshops everywhere. Um, so I took her workshop, and she I created a demo, and she kind of listened to it and gave me, pointers and stuff. And then she started hiring me to do some cartoons. And so my very first cartoon was Babar-The Movie, the first one. I just did some incidental voices. It was like actually ADR. So I was dubbing a cartoon, which was kind of fun. But it was a blast. And that was exciting. And then she kept hiring me to do other things. So I did Rupert, Little Rosie, and The Busy World of Richard Scarry. And I would do little incidental characters, or Busy World of Richard Scarry, I was Professor Dog, and I would show up every once in a while. Yeah. So I did that for a little bit. And then I think she moved on, and the industry is funny. It's cliquey, and and now that I'm an older girl, they think you have an old voice. So, when auditions come up, they'll say the auditions will be they'll have an age range. And so now I'm 61. And so now if it's under 60 years old, I'm not, called for that. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm not called in for that audition. So it's a hard business, but I'm keep trying. I keep submitting, and I've been getting auditions for audiobooks as well. Even though I do direct some of them, I audition for some as well. So hopefully I'll continue to get some more work in the voiceover area.
I'll be definitely glad to promote you as much as I can on my social media. Now, I want to ask you this: do you have a favorite animated series that you might watch once in a while, such as The Simpsons or something like that?
Yeah, they're good. And what else? Oh, well, I've watched The Family Guy and all that, but my favorite have always been I'm old school. I'm from an older generation, so the Warner Brothers cartoons, the original, Bugs Bunny, of course, Mel Blanc, infamous for
Flintstones.
Flintstones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the humor was very adult, and kids didn't catch the innuendos, right?
It was
And
different back then. Yes.
and some of them were brilliant, and yeah, it's just and Family Guy too, he's brilliant. The things that he would throw in, and the writer, what's his name?
I'm trying to think. I can't remember the name.
And he's also the voice for many characters. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant guy. Yeah, so hopefully one day I'll get to do some more.
Definitely, I hope you do, because you have a smooth, professional sounding voice, a really calming voice.
Oh, thanks.
So I'm still working on my voice. I have to be honest, and I've told my guests this too. I always listen to all my podcasts after on audio form, and I'm still hard on my voice. And some guys say you never get quite comfortable with your voice. Did you have that at first when you were
For
singing?
sure, for sure. I think I'm getting better at accepting how I sound. And voiceover has changed from when I first started the commercial voice. Years ago, everything was very trained, very focused, very placed. Not so much now. Now they want a natural voice. They want a conversational voice. They want you to sound like you're talking to your friend, you know? And a lot of it is like it's very hot. It's very like you just talk really soft. It's hardly any volume at all. So that's it. It's different. And I come from, theater where I had to learn how to I had to bring my voice down because I was so used to projecting and being big. And the same thing for singing. Years ago, it was a different style of singing, and now everything it's a little softer. Everything is like I don't know if you can hear me, but everything is just softer. So you're singing hardly with any voice at all. So I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah, I can hear it loud and clear.
Yeah, so that's it's changed that way. So they're looking for more natural, conversational, the guy next door, and quirky voices. They're looking for naturally quirky, not a put on.
Hmm.
They're not looking for people to imitate other people, but just kind of have
Unique,
a yeah,
unique.
unique, but unique, but in their own way. So yeah, so it keeps changing, right? So you have to figure out what's trending.
Okay, definitely. And I just got two quick questions I want to wrap this up with. You have any other besides what you're doing with your teaching and your music and stuff? Do you have any other hobbies, favorite restaurants, and when now that the pandemic I think is behind us, traveling places to go to? And do you have any other kind of music you like to listen to besides jazz, like um, rock and roll, classic rock and roll, or Motown music, or any of that other music?
Yeah, I listen to it all, um, at different times, and I continue to study voice. I'm working on, finishing my Royal Conservatory, so I'm working on my ARCT, which is the final leg of, the conservatory, training. So it's all classical and opera and aria, um, oratorio stuff. So, I'm I'm listening to a lot of classical music because I'm also doing a history component to it, and I have to learn a lot of very technical pieces. So I've been listening to a lot of classical. I do love Motown. I love blues. I love to sing the blues, and as I get older, even more as my voice starts to get a little more weighted in sound. Um, I listen. I love rock. My son is in a rock band, Revive the Rose, and so I love listening to their music and and other bands that he performs or shares the stage with. And what else? I love everything. Yeah, I like I like all styles of music at different times. Yeah, and,
Yeah,
um, I love Thai food. I love Thai food. I love Indian food, uh, and I love we're my husband and I are planning a trip out east. We're gonna tour the East Coast this summer. That's our
okay.
plan.
I was gonna say I finally went to the States about a week ago for the first time in 2.5 years, and felt nice to be able to drive on the highway again and visit somewhere, another
Yeah.
country. And I love sports, so I was so happy to do that. Now, as for musicians, I love Billy Joe and
Oh,
Bob
yeah.
Seger specifically. I was supposed to take a family member to see Billy Joe, but unfortunately the pandemic struck, and then last year they had all the restrictions, so I still haven't been to a live music concert yet, which is
Mhm.
on my bucket list. So hopefully I'll be able to go to one soon. Maybe I'll have to come up to your area and check out your when you're playing up in Niagara Welland next.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw Billy Joel live once about 20 almost 30 years ago. Yeah, uh, he was great.
I missed him in New York City by one day, and then I did have tickets for to see him in Buffalo in Orchard Park, but unfortunately the pandemic, the last 2 years kind of
Yeah.
struck. So I'm hoping maybe this summer I'll be able listen to some, go see and listen to some live music in person.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Definitely. And I'm gonna wrap it up with one last question for you, Barbara. I
Sure.
probably kept you longer than the 40 minutes, but I was gonna say, any advice for those looking to pursue a career in music, acting industry, vocal coach industry, and where can my audience find you again?
Well, you can find me at barbaramantini.com or on Facebook. I think I'm at Barbara Mantini or at Mantini Barbara. There was One I had to change because it was already taken. So there's another Barbara Mantini out there. Um, Advice for people pursuing a career in music and acting: just keep doing it. Keep performing, keep studying, keep learning, keep an open mind, connect, network, meet people, go see people, and encourage others, uh, and support others, and they will support you as well. And just share your knowledge, share your talent, and you just have to be brave and do it. You will have to have a part-time job or some kind of other full-time job to support you, most likely, or initially, because it is a hard industry, both music and acting. So find a job if acting and music is what you want to do. Find a job, a day job, uh, a job that allows you the freedom or the versatility to, either go to auditions if you're an actor, because you have to go to auditions. That's part of the acting gig. So something that will allow you to do that. A lot of people, wait on tables because they'll have their daytime free to go to auditions and things, or take a long lunch or an early lunch or late lunch and make that your audition time. And if you're in music, yeah, you'll need to find a work, maybe daytime work, so that you can do your nighttime work. Um, yeah. So you have to do what you have to do to help support your love, your career, your art, until your art becomes full time. It may
And
never become full time. Uh, it may become three-quarter time. But, it's the whole thing is pursuing it and doing it and looking for opportunities and networking and, growing as an artist.
absolutely, and that's what I'm trying to do with my podcast too. And I was going to say one aspect of this is the guest booking. I have to be very flexible with my guests, and guest booking itself is a full time job itself.
I believe that for
But
sure.
but I love doing it. I have a passion for it, and I've met a lot of wonderful people, such as yourself, and people in big ESPN, TSN sports. I never thought would ever give me the time of day as well. So this podcast and my volunteer work with Rogers TV has really changed my life.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well, you're such a great, kind person, and lovely to share time with. And people love to help people. If you know that they're honest and doing it from the heart, you know, people love to help others. People love to mentor.
And I've been very lucky. And like I said, I just try to keep improving every day. And the more you do something, the better you get at it.
Absolutely. Well
So
said. Yeah.
I was going to say, Barbara, I'm going to let you go. But I was going to say, thank you so much for coming on my podcast today. And I'm looking forward to listening to more of your music.
Oh,
And
thanks.
definitely will keep in touch with you on social media. And I will make sure after I will download this to audio version, and it'll be on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. So
Awesome. Oh, thank you. Well, Chris, it's been a delight. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm so happy to have been on your podcast.
well, thank you so much, Barbara. I hope you have a great day, and we'll definitely keep in touch with you on social media platforms.
All right. Sounds great. Take care.
You
All
too,
the best.
Barbara. You too. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my podcast today with Barbara Mantini. You can also check her out again on Twitter. She's on Twitter at Mantini Barbara. And also you can check her out on barbarmantini.com, her website as well. And I really appreciate her coming on today and talking about her career in music as a vocal coach and as an actor as well. Before I go, guys, I'm going to do this like I normally do. Live with CDP podcast, the audio version is downloaded to Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and LinkedIn as well. And you guys can also follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP. I post a lot of stuff on my TikTok page, so check me out on TikTok at Live with CDP podcast as well. And also, guys, I just finished a new blog last night, so please check out my latest blog. It's about the 2022 National Lacrosse League playoffs. You can check it out at wordpress.com/home/live with CDP podcast.wordpress.com. It's a huge lacrosse blog I did. And also, I have another lacrosse guest coming on this Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, and that's a legendary lacrosse player and NLL analyst and writer for indoor lacrosse, Brian Shanahan. He's also the brother of Leafs president and former Hockey Hall of Famer Brendan Shanahan. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Brian Shanahan this Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. So I have a doubleheader on my podcast. And just one sec, guys. Yeah. So on Wednesday, next Live with CDP podcast, Wednesday, May 11th, I have a doubleheader at 11 o'clock. I have Donnie Blackwell, a sports writer at Townsend Tower Light newspaper, and she's also on their sports network as an intern, and she's also a podcast host like myself. She's got lead, and she's a CEO of Beauty by Royal May. She'll be on at 11 o'clock in the morning, and then at 6 o'clock Wednesday night, Brian Shanahan to talk about his career as a lacrosse player and the National Lacrosse League playoffs, and maybe a little bit about the game to my audience as well. I've just become a new fan of the National Lacrosse League thanks to my friends Pat and John, and I've been to 2 games recently, so I love it as well. So hopefully you guys can tune in for that. And also, guys, you can check out the National Lacrosse League playoff schedule, nll.com/schedule 2022 playoff broadcast schedule as well. And also, guys, the National Lacrosse League finals in the West, you got Colorado, San Diego, best of 3. And then you got Toronto Rock taking on the Buffalo Bandits starting May 15th. In the East final, best of 3. The West final begins on Friday, May 13th at 10 o'clock from San Diego. And the East final begins this Sunday, May 15th at 6 o'clock from the KeyBank Center in Buffalo. I'm really looking forward to this. And let's see, guys. Also, we got in the NBA playoffs tonight, we got Boston and Milwaukee game 4 and Memphis at Golden State game 4 as well. And for Bills Mafia who watches this, Monday Night Football is heading back to Buffalo. The Bills will host the Tennessee Titans on September 19th at 7:15 p.m. Eastern on ESPN for a Week 2 rematch of last year's most exciting matchups, which the Titans won at the end of the game. That came down to inches as well. The NFL full schedule will be released on May 12th as well. So, and I think that's about it, guys. Oh, the OHL last night, Kitchener won. They beat the Windsor Spitfires 4-2. So that series is tied at 1-1. The next game is Tuesday in Kitchener and Thursday in Kitchener. So we'll see if the Rangers can take a 2-1 lead in that series with having home ice advantage as well. So, and I think that's about it. But again, I want to say thank you so much to my guest, Barbara Mantini. And please check out our website, barbaramantini.com. And that. So I hope you guys all have a great day. Enjoy the NHL games. Enjoy Major League Baseball. Enjoy the NBA games. And I hope you guys can check out my latest blog on wordpress.com live with CDP. I just want to say thank you to everybody watching this on my YouTube channel. Please hit subscribe if you already haven't. And thank you to those watching on Facebook Live and on Twitter. And later on, thank you to those that listen to me on Apple, Google, Spotify, and Anchor FM. My podcast is now in 14 countries. So, all right, guys, have a great day, great night, and we'll see you Wednesday at 11 o'clock for the next live edition of Live with CDP podcast with my guest, Donnie Blackwell at 11 a.m. and Brandon Shanahan at 6 o'clock. So, again, thank you to Barbara Mantini for coming on today. And you guys, hopefully you guys can listen to her podcast later on today. Have a great night, guys. And we'll see you Wednesday at 11 o'clock for another edition of Live with CDP podcast.